Houck and Joseph Lawson guilty on all charges.
Those are the words that Crystal Rogers' family members have waited a decade to hear. They heard them today. WDRB's Fallon Glick is at the Warren County Courthouse breaking down what was an emotional day in court. Fallon?
Well, Gil and Hayden, we actually had to leave the Warren County Courthouse because court was closing. It was raining outside, and so we had to move a couple blocks down the road to the library here in Bowling Green. But I want to talk to you about how this case has been one of the biggest in Kentucky, garnering national attention for years now. As you said, Houck, Joseph Lawson, guilty on all charges, receiving the maximum penalty for murder and tampering with evidence. So I want to do a little bit of a recap of what happened today in court. The jury started deliberating around 8:40 this morning, and not too long after that, they asked to rewatch testimony from one witness named Charlie Girdley. This is a former employee of Houck. He worked for him at the time of Crystal Rogers' disappearance back in 2015. So Girdley testified to being a convicted felon, a former drug addict who had been clean since 2023. He also talked about Steve Lawson telling him Houck wanted to get rid of his old lady and that Steve Lawson said Girdley would be the guy for the job. Now, Girdley said he just laughed that off, but then he said Joseph Lawson asked him for help with a truck and a trailer on the Bluegrass Parkway, and that is where Crystal Rogers' car was found back in 2015. You may recall all the news stories saying her purse, her cell phone, her keys all found still inside that car. And prosecutor Shane Young talked about that flat tire on her car, telling the jury that this would have been a perfectly planned murder if not for that car getting a flat tire. He said that was the giveaway in why this was not a perfectly planned murder by Houck and the Lawsons, that they could not account for something like this. So after hearing about 20 minutes of that testimony, they didn't need to hear any more. And it wasn't too long after that that the jury ultimately reached a verdict, and they deliberated for only 4 hours, and coming to those guilty verdicts for Houck and Joseph Lawson. As that verdict was being read, you could feel the nerves in the courtroom. You could hear sobbing from Crystal Rogers' family. Meantime, on the other side of the courtroom, there was no emotion from the family of Houck. They sat there silently, looking forward, not even talking to one another. And during some breaks, when we would file out of the courtroom, the family of Crystal Rogers would leave first, and then the family of Houck, they just stood up looking forward the whole time, almost as to purposefully not have to make eye contact with the family of Crystal Rogers. I did talk to Crystal's oldest daughter, Ashley, and I asked her what she would say to Houck and the Lawsons if she could. And she said she would tell them it's not fair. It's not fair that her mom was taken from her as a teenager. And now that Ashley is a mom herself, she said Crystal would have been the best grandma and would have loved her children. She also talked about her grandfather, Tommy Ballard, who was killed a year and a half after Crystal disappeared. That would have been Crystal's father. Here's what she had to say about that.
He would be ecstatic right now. He would be crying hard. But he was like one of the main investigators at the beginning of the case. And I actually lived with my papa and my mama Sherry from the time I was little. So I got to watch him day after day practically kill himself to make sure that mom was mentioned constantly.
Now, in the past, Sherry Ballard, Tommy's wife and Crystal's mother, she had told me in this fight for justice, she hoped that she would be making Tommy proud. And I believe that that would be the case here today with Houck and Joseph Lawson being found guilty on all murder and tampering charges. And again, you guys, maximum penalties for these two men, a recommended sentence from the jury for Houck, life in prison, and for Joseph Lawson, 25 years in prison. Now, the official sentencing with the judge, that will be held sometime in August. Gil?